Right, so this is the Osmo Action 5 Pro, and I got some thoughts. So DJI just launched their new action camera, and it's not just the 5, it's the 5 Pro. At first glance, it looks pretty similar to the Action 4, but if you dig a little deeper, you'll notice that DJI has actually taken my favorite camera from last year and pretty much upgraded everything about it. Oh, and added a few things. All right, so let's have a look what's new. If you look at the two cameras side by side, to be honest, there's not much difference. That is a good thing because all of your mounts and cages and everything that you have for your Action 4 are going to work on the Action 5. What they've done externally is updated with bigger buttons, and the doors seem to be updated to be a bit smoother and easier to use. As soon as you turn it on though, you'll notice the super bright, much bigger dual touchscreens HLG HDR OLED screens. The one at the back is now 2.5 inches. Is honestly incredibly beautiful. Being the first OLED screens in an action camera does a few things. It's bright, so super viewable outside. It's high contrast, so you can actually see what your footage is going to look like. It'll also save you some battery life. With OLED screens, the blacks are black because it's actually turning off some of those pixels. This unlocks some pretty cool stuff for those longer videos or time lapses because it actually turns the screen completely off, but still shows you what you're shooting, if you're shooting, how much time you got left, and all that kind of stuff. So pretty cool implementation of the OLED screen. When you look inside, you'll notice that DJI is actually taking this camera pretty seriously, targeting not just us weekend warriors out shooting our bike rides, but also going after those professional shooters. Yes, we didn't get that 1-inch sensor that we were all hoping for, but to be honest, this brand new 1/1.3-inch sensor is incredible. It now gives us 13.5 stops of dynamic range. For me, the dynamic range improvements were immediately noticeable. And because I've dialed in my log workflow, it looks even better. So this should be a good test for the dynamic range. It's super bright outside the forest and obviously quite dark in here. I'm shooting in the 10-bit color profile, so it'll give me, not only will I be able to use that 13 stops of dynamic range that it's got natively, but it also means that if there is any like really high spots or dark spots, I can go in and post and really tailor those and get them looking really good. What are you? T-Rex. When I reviewed the Action 4, I was a massive fan of the true to life color representation that you got out of the image thanks to that white balance sensor up the front. And I think now with the new sensor and the more dynamic range and better color management, I'm an even bigger fan of this image. I'm also a big fan of the 4K 120 that comes out of this camera. Before, I wasn't a huge fan of it, but now it's just super crispy, and you can also shoot in a 4:3 aspect ratio, so you can kind of reframe and crop as you go. With the photos, we can now shoot 40 megapixels compared to the 10 megapixels that we had on the Action 4. You can also go into any video using the app and take a full 4K screen grab, which is a feature that I really liked when I was using the GoPro. Taking the screen grabs is honestly the only times when I'd actually use photos out of an action camera. The photos are still fine. It's still nowhere near as good quality as like using your mirrorless camera, but it's really nice that they've added the higher megapixels and let you take those screen grabs. So the better low light performance on this thing has just been great. I'll talk about the proper night mode that they've added in a second, but where I've found it to really shine is because the weather has been horrendous in the last few weeks while I've been testing this thing. Just that extra bit of dynamic range has really nailed the stabilization in those terrible lighting conditions. Okay, so we're on the timber trail today. This is the first time I'm out riding with this camera. It's probably like the worst lighting conditions for mountain bike riding. It's miserable, it's the middle of winter, it's dark, horrible, rainy. If anything can step this thing up, it's this. I've got the camera set at 4K 30 frames a second
10-bit color in the normal color profile, and then I've got Rocksteady on, just normal Rocksteady. I'm not going to go Rocksteady Plus because I think it crops in a little bit too much. This will be a good test. Let's get into it, eh? Ooh, it's raining! Horrible! Right, so this isn't the sexiest footage ever, but it's a really good stress test for the low light capabilities and stabilization of these cameras. How these cameras normally work is they need a lot of light and get a really crisp image so that they can process the stabilization and do a good job at that. When it gets really dark, what happens is that frame rate slows down, the image gets blurry, and then it loses its stabilization. You can see how good a job the Action 5 Pro is doing here. It's near on dark. I wouldn't be able to ride with sunglasses on. This is about as dark as it would get while I was riding, so I'm super impressed with this camera.
This is probably the darkest it's been. If that doesn't kill the stabilization, I don't know what will.
The Action 4 was awesome at this compared to the last year's GoPro because it just had a bigger sensor, could capture more light, and then still stabilize the image better. This takes it to another level where we got that full dynamic range. I can shoot in terrible, almost dark scenarios, and it's still a usable, stable image while riding.
Right, so this is the new night mode in the Action 5 Pro. Gary and I are out here walking tonight at 10 o'clock at night so that I can test this feature for you. It's freezing. I've brought out the GoPro Hero 13 here as well, just as a bit of a reference image so you can see what that thinks it should look like. We're just literally street lights, and that's it. Nice full moon. Yeah, how's it look? Looks pretty good to me.
Let's go, Gary. Let's go.
This is crazy. It's honestly like pitch black outside. If you want to see the comparison between this camera and the GoPro Hero 13, make sure you get subscribed because I've got it and it's going to be a pretty good comparison. Well, this doesn't seem to be a very good comparison, but the rest of it should be. Okay, come on Gary, let's get out of here. It's getting cold, mate.
DJI has upgraded the chip inside this camera to be a 4nm chip. It's the first 4nm chip inside one of these action cameras. This unlocks better computational performance with less battery consumption. It does some cool new things like a subject tracking mode, pretty similar to what you get with the Pocket 3.
You'll see it crop down to 2.7K and then find the subject and just kind of track it around the screen. This effect's honestly wild because it looks like the camera's moving, but it's not. It looks exactly like the gimbal shots you get with the Pocket 3.
The coolest thing about having that new chip is that when it's paired with the new 1950 milliamp hour battery, the battery life is just insane. DJI quotes that it's got 4 hours of 1080p recording and an overall 50% increase in battery life across all modes compared to the Action 4. In practice, I never recorded for 4 hours straight, but I did notice a massive increase in the battery. The new bigger battery makes such a difference, and when you pair that with the fact that it fast charges like no other camera, it's super impressive. Other things that they've added, they've increased the waterproof depth without a cage to now 20 meters, and I believe that it's certified. It also has an internal depth gauge, so you'll know exactly how deep you are just by looking at the screen. It also can turn on and off automatically when you come in and out of the water. Pretty cool feature. I'm not a diver, and this time I didn't get to go to Fiji to do it, but maybe next time. You can also natively pair 2 DJI mics to this thing now, compared to the Action 4, which did 1 mic. This connection is actually a 48 megahertz connection that is proprietary to DJI, so it is full audio quality from the mic to the camera. If you have a look at like some of the other action cameras that are out now, they're doing the same thing with Bluetooth. The Bluetooth connection is horrendous. The audio quality out of this thing is so good. Right, so this is what it sounds like connected to the DJI Mic 2 with this camera. It connects natively to the camera itself. It's super easy to do. I'm about, what, 20 meters away from the camera at the moment, and you can hear me perfectly. It's super windy out here. The really cool thing about this camera is that it can now do 2 of these mics connected at the same time. If only I had someone to help me test that.
Hi everyone.
Yeah, so this is my brother Josh. He's got the mic connected to him as well. Is there anything you want to say to these guys, Josh?
Actually, I do. Julian and I have just started a new channel focusing on all of photography and videography, anything weird and wonderful with film cameras, with accessories.
Yeah, so the channel's called Fanboys. I'm going to leave all the links down below. Go check it out. We're actually going to be giving away one of these mics in one of our upcoming videos, so definitely get subscribed and check that out. We'll see you over there, eh? Pretty cool that we could do 2 mics, so we could do some pretty cool stuff where multiple people riding at the same time with the mics, or have one mic inside and one mic outside the car while we're driving. Yeah, just unlocks a whole lot more options when filming with this little action camera. My favorite feature that they've added is something that I didn't even think that I really needed, but now I honestly cannot live without going forward in action cameras. It's 47 gigabytes of internal storage. Now, I hate SD cards, and as you can imagine, testing these cameras and drones and all of that, I've got a lot of them, and they're never in the camera that you want to shoot with. It's fast, it's reliable, you can't forget it. It's just such an awesome addition to these cameras. Something I would like to see added, hopefully in a software update coming up, is the ability to record onto both the internal storage and an SD card. This would just give me backup if I've got a really important shoot or a cool moment that I know that I don't want to miss. Yeah, hopefully that's something that can be added later. But other than that, still awesome feature. So I know I'm starting to sound like a bit of a shill for this camera, but to be honest, I'm struggling to find stuff I don't like about it. I really loved the Action 4. It was my primary action camera last year, but DJI have just improved everything about that camera into this one, and even added stuff that I didn't even know that I needed. So I really had to scrape the barrel a bit to come up with a few things that I think could be improved, either going into the Action 6 next year, or even better, come to this one with the software update. The first thing I'd like to see is a few more mounting options for the Action. So at the moment, just like the Action 4, we've just got our quick release magnetic mount, and these are awesome because they pop off quickly and you can swap cameras and go from vertical to horizontal. And you've seen pretty much everyone in the industry now adopt some kind of mount like this, but it would be cool to have some more mounting options. Having a little like 1/4 inch thread down the bottom there or something, even if it's on a new case or something like that, would be pretty fire. The next thing I'd like to see is just a bit more internal settings for when I'm using ND filters. What's awesome is that we can still use the same ND filters that we could with the older Action 4 and just use them straight on this camera. But what I would like to see is just some settings for me to let it know what ND filter I'm using, and then it helps me set it up correctly. What we see at the moment from GoPro is that they've got these ND filters that go on the camera and it like automatically detects what ND filter it is and then sets all your settings up for that. I don't think we need to go that far because it's just overkill and you got to buy more ND filters and all that kind of stuff. But just if I could just tell it, all right, now I'm using an ND8 and I want that cinematic look, and it sorts it out, that'd be pretty cool. So the last thing I'd like to see going forward, and unfortunately it's definitely something that can't be fixed with a software update, is going to a new sensor. Now I know we just got this brand new sensor, and to be honest, the image quality out of this thing is more than we need. We don't need to go to a 1-inch sensor. I know you're all screaming it in the comments. But what I'd like to see them go to is a square sensor. So at the moment it's 4x3 and you're kind of limited on how you can crop in and change after the fact. The whole reason why I kept my GoPro Hero 12 for so long was that 8x7 aspect ratio that I could just bang the thing on, shoot whatever I wanted, and then reframe it to vertical, horizontal, square, whatever I wanted in post. And now that I've been testing the Insta360 X4 360 camera, it's something that matters to me so much because I can just shoot one thing and afterwards change to whatever I want. I can use the same piece of content on YouTube and on Instagram Reels. Hopefully this is something that DJI can implement going forward. It would be incredible to have that square sensor. It would also unlock a whole lot of new things with stabilizations and horizon locks and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, this sensor is fantastic, but next time, square. So overall, yeah, I'm pretty impressed with this camera. The Action 4 was my favorite camera last year, and this is shaping up to be my favorite one this year. Time will tell. I do have the GoPro Hero 13 that we're going to be testing this against. If you have any questions about that and you want to see that review, bang some comments down below and let me know what you want me to test. If there's anything I missed in this one that you want to see, I'll address that in the next video. But for now, if you like this content, go check out the new channel that I've started with my brother. The next video will be here, and yeah, other than that, we'll see you later.